Kiitos, as you say in Finland. That's as far as my Finnish goes. First of all, I would like to thank for the invitation for IIHF to come and talk to you guys, and obviously I feel very privileged to be here. I'm going to try to talk a little bit about how you communicate in these type of environments, what I call it a high competitive environment, and high performers. How do you utilize different things? So what I'd like to start with is a little bit my background, not necessarily my hockey background, but my academic background, because I think somewhere along the line I'm very, very curious as a person. I grew up not too far away from it, about 15 minutes away from here. Obviously Globen means something really a lot for me, because I was here '89 when they had the first World Championship in there. I was actually here watching the US-Sweden game. If you remember, that was a pretty nice breakaway there that's scored by Kent Nilsson. As well as obviously be part of that 2013 team that won the whole thing at home, which was a tremendous experience too to be part of. But anyways, I want to talk a little bit about communication, and since I'm a curious person, I do a lot of research, I do a lot of reading. So I'm going to start out with being a little bit more academic, and as you can see with my academic background, there's a lot of communication and also leadership. So I've done a lot of research in school, but communication and as well as leadership. So again, since I'm curious, I read up on a lot of stuff, so I'm going to throw a few things at you. I'm going to start right away with a book that I think is a really good book, and it's a suggestion for you guys that are interested in culture, period, to read this book, because Daniel Coyle came out with this book, I think it's about 8 years ago, talking about different culture, not necessarily athletic environments. The only example they have in the book is about Greg Popovich in San Antonio Spurs, who's very, very successful. And why was he successful? And they talk about his communication skills at that point as a basketball coach. Obviously, he just retired, but it's a pretty interesting chapter. But also dysfunctional organizations. Why were certain organizations dysfunctional versus the functional ones or the very successful ones? And the worst organization that he wrote about in this book and did some research on is those button pushers in Montana, Wyoming, the missiles and all that stuff. They have an environment there where they always get punished. They either do right or you get punished. If you admit that you have some kind of weakness, you get punished for that. And it's a terrible, terrible environment to be in. But reading that book, and I, again, encourage you guys to read this book, because there's a lot of good examples and a couple of bad examples how good and successful organizations are and how they communicate together or with together, and build each other up. So just a suggestion right away. I just want to give a few other things here too that kind of guiding me a little bit, and again comes up to my curiosity of continuously trying to get better. If I keep doing the same thing all over again and expect different results, it's going to be exactly what this guy is saying behind you. So I'm always trying to find new ways of getting better, not just when it comes to hockey, different things. Obviously attending here is one thing for everyone to try to get better, but also looking at other stuff like how can I communicate better? How can I get this group together? This is a pretty interesting quote that kind of guided myself a little bit, and because us coaches, a lot of times when we get questions about where you are in the season and all that stuff, and we talk about the process, I think most of us have a pretty good grasp of what process is, but break it down a little bit. What is a process? And I even bring it up with a team. Like we talk about this during the season, about the different stages of a group process. And I can even ask the team, okay, where are we right now in our process? And as you can see, the forming state or forming phase of a group process is when everyone get together. Everything is fine and dandy. Everyone's excited. It's been a long break for the summer. Some new players on the team. Everything is exciting. Everyone's very acceptable to where they're at. A really, really good place to be in the forming state. But that's just the first, say, couple of weeks or a week. But sooner or later, you're going to get into the storming phase. And the storming phase is nothing bad. It's actually a good place to be, because you can get some huge developments by being in a storming phase. But you shouldn't be there for very long. And what is storming phase? It could be everything from the players trying to figure it out. Am I going to be in a power play or not? Who am I going to play with? We lost two exhibition games here. What's going on in the lineup? Am I going to play or not? So there's a lot of things going on in the storming phase, and that could happen again during the season. the biggest thing, how do you get out of the storming phase? That's the biggest thing. And us as coaches, as leaders on that group, how do we get into the next process? And we keep talking about it all the time. For me, it's getting into the norming phase. And obviously that's proven by this picture right here. If you get into the norming phase, and that's where you do daily work. You're working every day on different things on the ice. You know, you're working to try and get the group tighter together. You're trying to find a common denominator where everyone is buying in and all that stuff. That's the norming phase. That's how you act every day. And the phase you want to be in most, or the stage, is obviously performing. And this is where all the cylinders hit. You know, like everyone's in the flow. You're winning consecutive games. You know, things are rolling on. And as you know, sooner or later, you are going to lose a game. It's going to be a little bit storming again. And then you get back into norming. Obviously, forming you only have once. But again, I'm going through this with a team, and so we have those discussions. I don't think it's something bad to kind of identify where we're at. A few other things that kind of guiding me in my leadership is the classic questions: the golden circle, what, who, and why. The W's, the classic. When I start coaching Division III college in a small Division III school in Wisconsin, I was blessed enough to coach the men's hockey in the winters and women's soccer in the summer. So it was really, I always loved the sport of soccer, but I was a soccer player myself, so it was a really cool way of making a living and actually paying for my school. The biggest difference was when I coached the guys in hockey, they never asked the questions, why? And suddenly when I coached those ladies in soccer, they asked, okay, why are we doing this, coach? So suddenly, wow, well, now I have to answer that too. Like, just follow me. Just do whatever I want to do. So that really put me on the toes, and it really got me thinking too when I did my research for my master's of you need to explain why you're doing this. Where is this going? So the golden circle is pretty important. Then build trust and relationship through action. Okay? And there's different ways to do that. I think, first of all, we need to be seen. So as soon as someone's walking in the locker room, make sure that you happen to see it. Like, hey, welcome, another day of work and all that stuff. Just see it. But also, putting a bunch of words is one thing, but you also have to live through it. And I'm going to show you a couple of things that we're doing with Tappara, we did in Zurich, and also with the national team, how we actually do that. But action is so important. Like, don't just talk about it, but actually act that way. Everything from how you treat each other and all that stuff. We talk about gut decisions, and gut decisions for me, it's a lot of previous experiences. So you learn as you go, and suddenly your gut feeling is this. It's because you probably have previous experience, good or bad, and you're making certain decisions based on your gut feeling. So that's something too that you need to recognize. Selflessness, we talk about that as a leader that shouldn't be about you. It should be about the players. Those guys should be the stars. The staff around you, you need to help them out to be successful. When you give them a clear job description, help them out to be successful with that. And that's my job. I see my job should be more of a service position than anything else. I'm making sure that everyone have what they need in order to succeed. Only give them like different role descriptions, obviously job descriptions of what they're supposed to do, not just the players, but also the staff around me, and help them out to be successful of doing that. And lastly, give time and energy to your members. And it's easy to talk about and say, but actually do it. And again, I got to show you a couple of examples later. So, a few things that kind of, I'm putting down on a piece of paper and I'm trying to live by daily. Simon Sinek is a little bit of a house god for me. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen or read him and seen him on YouTube and different videos, but also read his books. He brings up a lot of good points and obviously done a lot of research when it comes to leadership. But we talk about ownership and responsibility. Those are great words, but what does it actually mean? How can we actually achieve this in a team? Okay, I had a discussion yesterday with one of the coaches about, you can't give them too much because they're just going to take it and run. Well, there's different ways you can do it. Doesn't mean that at the end of the day, you as a leader are responsible to make decisions. Doesn't mean that you can't have people involved in making a decision by asking a lot of questions and so forth. So, but Also, we talk about the safe spot. What is the safe spot? The famous circle of trust. What does that mean? It's a safe environment to be in. And how do we create that? So again, I got some tools that I'm working on. But again, few leadership thoughts. Lastly, when it comes to Simon Sinek, he talks a lot about Navy SEALs, of how they work in. And one of the examples he puts up is this kind of bell curve, whatever you want to call it, but performance and trust. You're talking about if you have high trust, high performance, those are the people that everyone is identifying, those are the guys you want, and so forth. But the interesting thing in the Navy SEALs, they'd rather have a medium performer and a high trust, even a low performer and a high trust, than high performance and low trust. So we talk about that in a team. Okay, how do we trust each other? If I put you out in different situations, can us as a team, can we trust you actually doing your job? So by being very, very clear with the team that we want you guys, we have to trust you whatever you do. Doesn't matter if you're a fourth liner or a first liner, whatever you want to call it, what different positions you have, job descriptions, but can we trust you to do the job every day? And we have a few conversations about this quite frequently too. We talk about structure a lot, and if you have no structure, this is a little bit interesting. When you have a World Championship team, for example, when you fly in all these guys in, and you start on from scratch more or less. So we have a bunch of individual players, okay? They're playing like individual players because you haven't set the structure, you haven't set the systems, the tactics and everything else. And you can win games this way because you have really good players. But somewhere along the line, you have to give them some structure because, as you know, if you work together, we're going to be a lot more successful. The problem we get into as a coaches, though, I think the next picture kind of shows you have too much structure. So now we're telling the players what to do in every situation. 100 times out of 100, you got to do this. 100 times out of 100, you got to do that. And not trying to get away from that a little bit. Because I think it's more important that I wanted those guys to make decisions on the ice. So we have your individual skills. You have some structure. We set it up. For example, if you have a breakout, you're going down in the half boards, you have different skills, whoever picks up that puck, but you also know and aware where all those guys are at. So you can make decisions based on, we have the structure, you know where the player's going to be, but also your individual skills of making a read of what's best place for that situation itself. And that's what I think is the best way to do it. You have some kind of a structure, obviously something that you have buzzwords, what kind of play teams we are active in these situations, yada, 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 and follow through on that. So if you can get the players to still have the individual skills of making good decisions. I always keep bringing up, they recall some Victor Hedman situation, two really, really good defensemen, but they got to solve situations different ways because of the skill set and who they are. And us as coaches, we need to allow them to do that. So get into some how do you communicate in different situations and so forth. I'm going to give you some concrete examples of stuff that I run into during my journey of 30 years as a coach. But retaining information, and you talk about see, hear, and do. Like this is so important in order to retain information, and if you want to get everyone on the same page, that you're actually touching all the senses. We all learn in a different way. Some people learn from reading it. Some people see it, retaining it. But obviously, we all need to do something. So, for example, before we're working on something, we have a theme on our practice. We watch a few situations on the video before we go on the ice. We're working on the ice, obviously videotaping that, and then we give feedback after that. But we also have the golden triangle or the golden words, why, all the W's, and explaining why we're doing different things and how it entails in those type of situations. So it's really, really important that we do touch on all the senses because we're all learning in a different way. So concrete situations with communications, we have team scenarios when you have a big group, almost as big as this. How do we communicate with a team? Smaller groups, individual situations when you're talking one-on-ones, and special projects. So I'm going to talk about and break down each one of these type of situations. Let's start with a team. And this bell curve I think is pretty interesting. The information and confusion, and we try to live by that every day. And the biggest thing what this tells you, if you have no information, it's going to be a lot of confusion, right? But if you have too much information, it's going to be a lot of confusion too, because you can set up video sessions, you can have everything broken down, showing different scenarios, different situations. But if it's too much, you're not going to be able to retain that information. So me as a head coach, because especially nowadays when you have all these assistant coaches, you have video coaches, you have analytics, you have packages every day of giving you information, your job is to try to boil everything down. So our motto is like in front of the whole team, max 15-minute presentations. So 15 minutes, that's what we keep on. That's kind of the golden rule. So it needs to be short and very clear. Okay, what kind of message do we want to say? So I'd rather have 2 or 3 messages than 10, even though those 10s are really good things to give out and work about. You need to be very clear and boil it down to maybe 3 at tops. We have something called after action review after games, and this is pretty interesting. And I stole that concept or the wording from the Navy SEALs too. And more or less what they do in Navy SEALs, they go on a mission, they come back, and after that they have they're talking about what happened. And it's no rank. So everyone is on the same rank. You can talk from your perspective what you're doing. So it doesn't matter where in the military you're at that point in time, everyone can speak up. So in my perverted sense, okay, how can I do it? How can I apply it into hockey? So what I do, I bring the chair in, I put that in the locker room. So I'm sitting the same level because that's pretty easy. The coach is walking around and looking down at people versus I'm on the same level as those guys. And I ask the question, okay, what do you think about last game? And remember, I'm in Finland now. So it's got to be as quiet as it was just 2 seconds ago. Not a lot, and that's not going to work. Same thing in Switzerland. It's not going to work. No one's going to say anything. But sure enough, after a minute, awkward minute, maybe awkward 2 minutes, when I'm not even saying anything, it's suddenly yeah, we had a good second period. We did a really good job in D zone, and we got the puck out, and and the next guy goes, yeah, and then after that, the zone entries were great. And now suddenly you start talking about it. And by doing that is first of all, I put in a little bit of ownership to the players in the sense of, hey, don't just waiting for me to feed you information. I'm going to help you out. I have a video set up from the game. I'm going to give you some feedback from the game from our perspective. But you guys are in action. We have the bird eyes view in the sense of we're looking down. We can slow it down in the video. We can watch it 100 times and say, okay, you should have done this. Well, it's easy for me to say, right? So then we have a good communication that you talk about, but also with each other. They can coach each other a little bit too. And sometimes, they have disagreements too. Believe it or not, there's some disagreements in the locker room. That's great. But again, storming phase, you can learn something from it. Get back into norming. Scouting report again, very short. We try to be very to the point, and especially when you play in a regular season like we do, have 60 games regular season. We play in teams several times, so you can just get more and more, more and more into details the more you play in a team, obviously, by giving the gist a little bit what we're playing against. But again, we have, when we start in the morning skate, before the morning skate, we have the power play or the penalty kill and the power play sessions, as well as we're doing the face-offs. And then after the skate, we're doing the 5-on-5 scouting. So we spread it out a little bit more than going through in 20 minutes. We spread it out to maybe 10 and 5 or something like that. And different feedback situations, obviously, again, 15 minutes tops. We try to hit that sweet spot when it comes to information and confusion. And again, that's my job, because there's a lot of will in there. There's a lot of coaches and analytics and everything else that want to give something, but you need to boil it down to a presentable way. Now, special assignments, we're going to talk a little bit of special assignments at the end, but smaller groups, now you can get a little bit more into details, because a smaller group is going to be more of a Q&A situations. For example, what is that? Well, you have special teams, you have power play, you have penalty kills, you can have units, you can have forward lines, defensive pairing, forwards Ds, but it's going to be a lot more communication than Qs and As, which means you can have a little bit longer and you can be a little bit more detailed when it comes to those. Positional meetings. Again, forwards. We have a forwards coach. We have a defenseman coach. But before we have those positional meetings, we obviously go through everything together in the morning. So we're on the same page. It doesn't mean that the forward coach can have opinions about the defensive part of the game or vice versa, or me as a head coach can have my opinion too. But when the guys are coming in the locker room and presented, we know exactly what's being presented. A lot of times I'm not even in the room when they're having those meetings because everything is set, what's supposed to be said. So when a player comes up to me, I know exactly what will be said in the morning. But again, I trust the coaches well enough and give them a lot of ownership in doing these meetings. And it's important to have everyone's voice. Individual meetings. There's something I learned too when I coached the women's team there in Wisconsin. The coach I was coaching with, and she's been doing this for a long time, and she has a monthly meeting with the players. So say you were number 3 on the team, so third of that month, your job as a player is to set up a meeting with the coach, an individual meeting. That's your meeting. And in that meeting, you can talk about anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be about hockey or sports or anything related to really what you do. It could be anything but talk about dogs, that's fine, or what you're doing at home. But make yourself accessible of doing that. And the interesting thing is that, we're starting out, everyone's talking hockey. First of all, more likely we're going to be in a storming phase because we're start of right after forming phase. That's usually when we have the first meeting. So, the wonder, where am I at? Where am I standing? And all that stuff. To the end of the season when everyone's to open up. Yeah, my dog does this, or, my wife's doing really good in nursing school or whatever it is. Suddenly open up and we have a common denominator. It also shows that I'm human. But I think, if you want to have someone be successful on your team, you want to have the relationship in a sense that we can have a common denominator or something. I have dogs too. I got 2 French bulldogs. So, it's pretty interesting. And, I got to give you an example where that was pretty successful. We had a junior team I had a long ways back. I was working with USA Hockey in junior A's in the U.S. We had his goaltender. It was going to go Division I. Had an outstanding start of the season, and then things are going to start sliding. And I started talking to him, and sure enough, the parents were having a divorce. His sister was very sick. I mean, all those things that I had no idea about. I just looked at him as a hockey player, and suddenly I got to know him in that sense. And I said, hey, listen, just go home. Go home, clear your mind, do what you have to do. When you're ready, come back. And he did that, came back, outstanding on playoffs. Obviously, he had the MVP and all that stuff. So that kind of shows you a little bit of if they can open up to you as a leader, as a coach, I think that you can get a lot more out of people, but also I can understand a little bit where you're coming from. Bench clarifications, I try to be very clear. If I say something on the bench, I always make a note about that. And afterwards, I can sit down with the players and we can talk about it. It doesn't necessarily have to be me being right and he being wrong, but it needs to be, we need to settle something. This is what we saw, this is what this is how we're going to do next time and whatnot. So move on. But I'm very clear on that because the biggest thing, and I felt as a player, be better. Okay, coach. Okay, what does that mean? Give me some example. How can I get better? And so I think it's very, very important that if you say something to them, make sure you understand exactly what you're doing. And sometimes it's going to be a heated moment because you're in the middle of the game. Make sure you clear the air right after the game or even the day after. Shoulder-to-shoulder communication. We're fortunate enough when we had our under 18, under 20 team to work with sports psychiatrists in a sense of, they're helping us out with our leadership and all that stuff. And I was fortunate to work with someone who was very direct and helped me out in my leadership. But he suggested that the best way to get a common denominator with players, so we say a player that doesn't have the monthly meeting in a while, you just want to talk about it, go shoulder by shoulder. Instead of bringing him into your office and you sit on the chair looking down on him a little bit, you have the desk in between. He's just going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. Go for a walk with him, shoulder by shoulder, or even when you skate on the ice, go up and shoulder by shoulder. And they're going to be a lot more direct and they're going to give you a lot more information that way. And he's right. He's 100% right. So that's pretty important. We're talking about open door policy, and everyone says this, right? Everyone says, oh yeah, we have an open door. You can come in whenever. And then when you're walking up to coach, the door is closed. We really mean this. So if a player really wants to talk to us, even if we're in the middle of a meeting, he can come in and talk to us. We really mean it. It's so important, especially when they see we have a meeting, they won't come up unless it's something really, really important going on with the team or them individually at that point of time. But you have to allow this and build that kind of relationship that there really is an open door policy. Don't just talk about it, but actually act on it as well. Okay, we're going to try this. This is, obviously, we're speaking Swedish here, so I apologize for the guys who don't speak Swedish. But this is a little bit of the shoulder-to-shoulder communication I have with the players, and this is on the ice. This is a training camp right before the World Championships, 2017. But a little bit of how I'm talking and asking questions and a little bit curious how things are going on the ice especially.
Jag har ju uppdrag ute som har uppdrag, men det känns som en säkerhet för oss. Jag brukar snäcka på det. Nu när jag linar, jag vet att inte han om minoriteten 40% av gångerna. Så ja, det är bra, vi bara kolla så att bara så att vi uppfrätter det. Vi håller det lika högt. Därför att vi linar 1, 2, 3, för mig är inte alla ett uppdrag. Och du börjar känna lite vad coachar också. Jag coachar helt enkelt. Ja, det känns som en trygghet för mig att sätta in det för att 2 tekare. Om du utkastar så har du 2 tekare. Vi kommer få de uppdragen. Defensiva sån, tek och... Du känner dig tryggare? Ja, jag vet att du gjorde det. Ja, men det blir som du förstår jag. Det är ganska flytande ändå. Så ja, men bra. Du känner här matchräckningen och det är defensivt. Även när det är öppet att du fortsätter upp på pappen. Vi uppskattar det allmänt. Vi ser på bilderna att du verkligen gör det jobbet. Det är för att folk har alla frågor nu. Det fortsätter under det här för att vi skickar alla bort som gör det.
For the Swedish guys here, I saw that was Mark, the last one there. Compliment him for back checking. So, anyways, a few things that I talk about here is your mission on the ice. That's your mission, which more or less, this is your role. So if it's a defensive face-off guy or a defensive, like Marcus Kruger obviously has a very defensive profile on him, especially with that team, that he will take the face-off, in certain circles, and also have the defensive situation, but moving the puck forward. Very clear missions. Again, I like that way of communicating instead of sitting at that office, tell him exactly what to do, because now it's very easy for him to ask a question if there's something unclear. Because it's something that one of the psychiatrists that I work with, I'm having this conversation for 15 minutes with a team. I thought I'm 100% clear. Like everyone is, that was an awesome clarification for me. And I'm walking in the coach's room and I was going, yeah, that was a good one. And he comes in, not one guy in there understands that word you're saying right now. They have no clue. So he was pretty direct. I was going, you know what, you're right. But by doing that, you can also check off, do they understand what you're saying? Do they understand what you're trying to do? And all that stuff. And I think that's pretty important that they can have the communication with them. Special assignments. We started doing this probably 5-6 years ago. I walk into a training camp in Zurich and I see all these quotes by Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or whoever it is. Great quotes, really got me going just looking at those quotes. And the more I'm thinking about it, it's like, okay, I'm going to put up some quotes. I'm going to be, trying to motivate the guys and all that stuff. And suddenly I go, you know what? That might not motivate anyone else. It might motivate me. So I've been challenging the players a little bit in the sense of, okay, help me out. What motivates you guys? One thing that I wanted to do, same thing with these rules and stuff like that. And what I wanted to do is get the players involved. We talk about the ownership, and that's something I mentioned to start out with, the ownership part of it. And how do you get the players to buy in? Because, you know, you as a coach, and you know, you have a lot of good coaches, have a lot of experience, you have the rules. You put up the rules. This is, in order to be part of this team, these are the rules. And I'm going to go after you if you're not following the rules. And whose rules are those? Those are my rules. Okay? So I was going, okay, let's turn around. Let's make them our rules. Because coaches are we're still going to be involved in this process. So my idea was like, okay, let's put a contract together. And contracting is binding. As soon as you sign it, you need to live by it. Otherwise, there's going to be ramifications, right? But let's put our words in there. And this is 2 years ago, I think it is. So we have, for about 2 or 3 weeks, we have continuous meetings, small groups, breakout sessions, big groups, and we talk about what are the values we have on this team? What's important in order for us to be successful? We call it the foundation to success contract. That's what we call it, because it is foundation. How do we treat each other in the locker room? How do we work? How hard do we work on the ice? How can we identify what is hard work? And we have in these discussions, and then we put in some words on this contract, and then we place it right in the locker room. Everyone signs it, including the staff, because we've been involved in it as well. I'm trying to make very, very clear questions, and sometimes before we have these contract discussions, I can show motivation. I think one year I show All Black, the rugby team from New Zealand. You know, this is what they're doing. You know, this is the words they live by, yada yada yada. And after that, we have discussions trying to motivate us to go, you know, a step beyond and just like, oh, work hard, you know, be on time. You know, we're trying to do something more. And then based on that contract, we're picking out 3 words, and those are the 3 words we have in our locker room. So a daily reminder of what we agreed on, because now we've signed a contract, we're binding, right? It's binding. So that's one idea that we had, and I think it's been pretty successful. And also for you as a coach, you can go back to this contract. These are not just my words. This is our words. This is what we agreed on. And then, of course, you as a coach, you have to live by it too. We talked about player motivation. I'm going to go into the last couple of videos. I don't know what I'm doing for time here, but so one other idea I had, a lot of ideas here, right? But I'm trying to be how those ideas are actionable. So before playoffs, you know, you want to step it up. Obviously, you go into the playoffs. Now you need more from everyone. How can we motivate us to be in that good flow state of mind going into those games and you know what's ahead of us. So you know what I was thinking is, okay, instead of me going in and give that huge speech, which I played 60 games, they're already sick and tired of me, right? Going in there and telling them they need to back check more. So my idea is, okay, let's draw a name out of a hat, or I should say a number out of a hat, and whoever comes up, you're responsible for that motivation before this game. That's all I said. So we started with that, and a few guys come up, you know, and they have this, you know, rap or you know, to sing a song, to do something, you know, and guys get going and all that stuff. And then they started to get more and more elaborate. So suddenly you have these huge videos, like super good videos, like great production. And obviously now with AI and all that stuff, it's really, really good. So I was thinking about showing a couple of those and see a little bit. Here's one of them.
Whether or not you win this thing, you got to decide how you're going to walk out of here when it's all said and done. Because the game is going to go on. And there's only one rule you're going to need to know about. There are no second chances. There's only this moment and the next moment. Every one of those moments is a test that you get to take one time, and only one time. So if you see an opening, tear into it. If you get a shot at victory, make damn sure you take it. Seize that moment. That moment is a crossroads where everything you want will collide with everything standing in your way. You've got momentum in your back. Fear and doubt are thundering like a freight train straight at you. And all you done, the only difference between making history and being history, the only thing you can count on at any given moment is you. It's you versus them. You versus no. You versus can't. You versus next year, last year, statistics, excuses. It's you versus history. You versus the odds. It's you versus second place. Clock is ticking. Let's see what you got.
Wow. Yeah, no kidding, eh? I was like, it was our backup goalie too. I was like, really? You should start a production company. But this is, like I said, it was some funny things. I have one from this year as well, a little bit more funny one. But once again, I mean, look at the things they touched. Every player was in there. They were having fun. They were enjoying what they were doing. They were challenging each other. They also knew the momentum of you can either make history or be history. I mean, those are pretty strong words. I was like I'm ready to go now, like as a coach. But that kind of showed you a little bit that those players, they have some knowledge, they have some extra stuff that if you encourage them to go outside their comfort zone as well, like what I'm trying to do as a coach, these things can happen. I thought it was really, really good. And I think that we also won that game. So it was, those are things that I think if you as a coach and as a leader are willing to challenge the guys within the locker room to go outside the comfort zone, I think they will do the same thing when it comes to going on the ice and challenging themselves as well. So I think that was about it. I have one more video. Should I do that one first? This is a funny one, though. This is a funny one. This is from this year.
Ya están aquí, mira el bañador, la chancla. Toma peinado porque no me dio tiempo de ponerme la chancla y el bañador. Voy a la playa y yo subí la pared.
So you can make it fun too.
Language. You're in Switzerland, so you have 3 or 4 or 5 different languages on a team, from German to Swiss to Finnish, Swedish, United States. How does that affect, and what do you think about with the language difference? Is everything just through English and everyone has to learn English, or do you try to help out and connect with each player in their own language.
Well, that's why I think it's even more important to have those individual meetings and set them up. And obviously, my German is manageable. My Finnish is almost non-existent. I'm okay in English, and my Swedish is probably my best. But there are different ways to communicate. And what I feel like, there's so many words now in hockey. Most of them are English. English is a direct language. It's pretty easy to identify different things. And also, when you're working together, we have some younger players. For example, in Tappara, we had a couple of 19-year-olds that playing on team. We had used 9 junior players last year on team. But they're growing up in their environment, so they know the buzzwords and everything else. Plus, I have a staff of Finnish coaches that can speak the language too if something is unclear. But there's only one meeting I had during these close to 7 years now playing or coaching outside of Sweden, and there's only one guy that had the translator once. So other than that, it's pretty direct language. I'm making sure too, if I feel like I didn't reach the guy or something like that, I tell one of the assistants to go and clarify. There's always ways around it. Sometimes, my assistant coaches, if it's only the Finnish guys there, speak Finnish. I don't care. I don't take it as a threat. But I think it also teaches me to be even more clear in the video sessions and everything else. It needs to be very, very clear what we're trying to accomplish.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay.